Hello and welcome to Code Tutorials. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the Business Reviews Yelp widget from the Key Addons for Elementor Premium plugin. With this widget, you can easily display the Yelp reviews your business gets and style them to match your site. What we're seeing here are some examples of what you can do with the Business Reviews Yelp widget. The possibilities are numerous. You can display your reviews across a whole section or just one half while leaving room for different content in the other half. There's a lot of room for creativity given that all widgets in the Key Addons collection can be combined smoothly, which allows for the easy creation of complex page sections. Of course, whether you choose to do that or not comes down to your preference. And with this widget, whatever you decide to make will look great. Business Reviews Yelp is chock full of handy options that allow you to adjust colors, margins, layouts, and more. And in the coming tutorial, we're going to see how all that works to create one of the design solutions from this page. So let's get started. I have a page ready that I will be working in, and you can see right away I prepared a section where I plan to show the reviews. The left column has a background color, but it's otherwise empty. This is where the widget will go. The right column also has a background color as well as some text content, which I added using the section title widget. And there's also this visual here that I added using the image widget. All of this is here just to give some context to the element I'll be creating. Alright, now I need to add the Business Reviews Yelp widget to the page. To do that, I'll search for it in the Elementor sidebar. One moment, there it is. And drag it over to the page. Okay, this is not an error, this is simply what the widget looks like by default. It won't display anything until you tell it which business it needs to display the reviews for. That's done using the business ID. You can find your business ID on Yelp. I have a random business open here in a new tab. If you don't already have the address of your business's review page on Yelp, you can search for it here. Once you're on the right page, you need to look at the URL. At the end of it, all these words following the / are your business ID. This is what will let the Business Reviews Yelp widget know the business whose reviews it needs to show. However, you need to have one more thing for the widget to work properly, and that is the API key for integrating Yelp, which is ultimately a third-party service, with your site. Once you have your API key, you'll need to add it to the integration page. I have that open in a different tab. This is what it looks like. You can find this page if you go to your dashboard menu, open Key Addons for Elementor, and then click on the integration page sub-option. As you can see from this page, there are a handful of widgets within the Key Addons collection that require API keys. It's entirely up to you which of them you want to use. In the middle of them, you'll find a listing for Business Reviews Yelp. Simply paste the API key you get from Yelp in here, and then you can start to set up the widget, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to use a random business whose ID I copied earlier. There. As soon as I added the ID, the reviews appeared. These are the latest 3 Yelp reviews for my example business. The default setting makes them elongated so they can be displayed one next to the other. But that can be easily changed. To start with, we can pick the list appearance. The default is gallery, which you can see on the right, and the alternative is masonry. With this list appearance, we get differently sized review boxes. I'll be sticking with the masonry list appearance. The next option we have is image proportions. This actually concerns the whole review box, not the image within the reviews. So the proportions can be original, as you can see on the right, or fixed, which looks like this. Now the boxes are limited in size, which is something you can fine-tune separately. However, for my design, I'll be using original, because the fixed setting kind of defeats the purpose of using the uneven masonry layout. Alright, after that we can set the number of columns. This lets you pick how many columns will be used to display your reviews. By default, it's set to 3. I'll switch to using 2. This rearranged my reviews so the last one will fall into a new row. Now it's a bit easier to see how the masonry layout contributes to the overall look. After the number of columns option, whose setting applies to desktop screens, you have this, columns responsive, for selecting the number of columns that will be displayed on different screen widths. You can pick between using the predefined setting, which is coded to be responsive and will ensure your content looks good. This setting is here to spare you the effort of adjusting things manually via the custom setting. With custom, you'll get this selection of different screen widths, which you can adjust one by one. It's a bit more work, but it gives you more control. Which of these do you decide to use is down to preference. For the design I'm creating here, I'll use predefined. Following that, we have the space between items option. It's exactly what it says. You can use it to adjust the amount of space between the reviews. And as you can see, this applies to both the vertical gap as well as the horizontal gap. For the value here, I'll use 28 pixels. Okay. Then we have the borders option. By default, we don't have any borders, but if I set this to all, then we'll get borders separating the reviews from one another. And there will also be borders encircling all the reviews together. Besides that, we can set the borders to between. Then we'll get these lines acting as borders to separate the reviews from one another. Unlike the previous setting, the reviews won't have any borders around them. Now, if you decide to use borders, then you'll be able to pick their color. Simply choose whatever color you like and it will show on the border lines. However, I'll clear this and restore the border setting to default since I don't plan to use borders for my design. Okay, next we have the number of reviews option. As you can see from the note below, the maximum number of reviews that can be shown per element is 3. This keeps things neat and easy for visitors to take in without getting bogged down. So you can set a lower number here, 1 or 2 reviews, but I'll stick with 3. With that, we cover the first section of the options, General. Next, we have the Layout section. The topmost options here allow us to replace the icons used for the star rating. The first field is for the marked icons, and the second is for the unmarked. The marked icons are the ones that represent the filled stars. Basically, they show the rating. And this here is an unmarked icon. It's an unfilled star. The icons we have here by default are from the icon library. If you open the library, you can see the selected icon. And you can easily pick something new to replace it with while you're here. Alternatively, you can use a custom SVG for the icons. That's what I'll do. Here's the star I want to use, and insert media. I'll do the same for the unmarked icons. Pick a custom SVG and insert it for the reviews. Okay, we can see the new icons on the page. Just a brief explanation. I've added 2 separate icons because the rating is created and shown by overlapping the icons. So if you add the same icon in both fields, don't be surprised if your rating shows 5 identical stars. Alright, the next option we have is the Enable Drop Shadow. It's active by default and it gets us this shaded bit around the reviews that makes them seem to float above the surface of the page. If this is not something you're interested in, you can switch the setting to No to turn it off. And then the reviews will look like this. My design includes a shadow, so I'll set this back to Yes. Then we can pick the item layout. This determines the look of the individual reviews we're showing. Currently, it's set to box-centered, and it's the look you can see on the right. The reviews are box-like, and their content is centered. This is the look I want to use for my design, but let's go through the other settings so you can see what they look like. There's boxed. It gives us a completely different look and layout. And the options we can use to adjust it, those 3 underneath, are the same as the ones we had for boxed-centered. Other than this, there's also the centered setting. With this one, we lose the boxed background and the image becomes more prominent. Additionally, we get a different option with it. It lets us choose whether to enable the image. It's set to Yes by default, so our reviewers have their profile pics visible. If I switch this to No, then the reviews will be text only. I'll restore it and we can look at the remaining layout settings. The next one is Intro Right. This setting seemingly creates 2 columns and puts the reviews to the right of the images. And finally, our last setting is Side with Image. Here, the image is placed in the top left corner while the text and all the other information stays on the right. Alright, I'll go back to box centered. As I mentioned, that's the setting I want to use. With my layout picked, I can adjust its padding. This option allows us to determine how much space we want around the review content. For example, I'll set 50 pixels here. Now we have slightly less space all around the review content, which lets the text fall differently. The first review, for example, has 6 lines now instead of 7. In case you don't want the same amount of padding all around, you can get that by clicking here to disconnect the fields and entering different values for each. In my case, I'm going to keep 50 pixels at the top, so this space will stay the same. But I'll reduce the other sides a bit by setting 45 pixels in all the other fields. Give me a moment. Okay, there. Now these 3 sides are the same and the top is only slightly larger. After the padding, we have the border radius option. It allows us to curve the corners of the review boxes. You can see there is a bit of radius already here by default. You can increase it by setting, for example, 30 pixels. Then we'll get this more rounded look for the corners. For my design, I'll set 5 pixels. FYI, you can also set different values here if you disconnect the fields. This will let you have some sharp and some blunt corners, and with that you can create something resembling speech bubbles, for example. Experiment until you find the right fit for you. Okay, next we have the background color. It's for changing the color of the review boxes. With this familiar color picker, you can easily set anything you like and match the rest of your site's color palette. For my part, I'll stick with the default white color, so I'll clear the changes. Okay. With that, we covered all the options in the layout section, and we can move on to the next one, which is the developer tools section. It contains just one option that, if switched to yes, will show the widget in the form of a standard WordPress shortcode, making it easy to copy for use elsewhere on your site. I'll set this back to no. Besides the developer tools, we have one more section in the content tab, and that is the help. This is where you can find some helpful resources should you need them. And that's all we have here. Let's move on to the next tab, Style. The first section here is dedicated to styling the rating icons. To start with, we can adjust the size of the marked icons. So, all of these that are dark in my reviews. When I start to move the slider, you can see how they change. All of the marked icons are bigger now, while the unmarked icon has stayed the same. For my icon size, I'll set 17 pixels. Okay, we have a similar option for the icon unmarked size. You can see how it becomes larger when the value increases. I'll set 16 pixels for this. There we go. The next option we have is for changing the marked icon's color. You can set whatever you like using the slider. You can see the icons change right away, or you can use a hex code to pick your preferred color. That's what I'll do. Okay, and I'll copy this hex code so I can reuse it for my unmarked icon's color. Just a sec, paste, and there. Now my icons match while looking distinct from one another. The next thing we have is a section for styling the title, meaning this text that shows the reviewer's name. To start with, we can change the title tag. This allows us to pick a different HTML tag. I'm going to set H5 for mine. Now the name is much smaller, so it's not drawing attention away from the review text. The next option we have is for changing the title color. You can easily set whatever you like. You have this familiar color picker, but I'm going to stick with the default color. Okay, and last but not least, we have the title typography. Click to open and you get this standard bundle of typography settings. I don't need to change anything for my design, but we'll go through the options anyway so you can see what's included here. Firstly, you can change the font family for the reviewer's name. There are hundreds of fonts for you to choose from. Then there's the font size, which is straightforward enough, and font weight, which offers a selection of settings from thin to bold. After that, we have the transform option if we want to turn the reviewer name to uppercase, lowercase, capitalized, or keep it normal. There is also the style option, which we can use to change the text style from normal, which is our default, to italic or oblique. Following that, the decoration lets us add a line over, under, or through our text. Finally, we have the line height, letter spacing, and word spacing in case we need to make any changes to the spacing in our text. And that's everything under typography. I'll close this and we can check out the next section, spacing style. The first option here is title margin bottom. It allows us to add space below the title, which is this, the reviewer's name. So we're looking at the space underneath it. When I start to move the slider, you can see how the space expands. Since I'm happy with the default setting, I'll clear this. Then we have a matching option for adjusting the space above the title. Here, it's the title margin top. Again, if I start to move the slider, the space changes. I'll clear this as well to restore the default setting. Next, there is the icon margin right option. It's for adding space to the right side of each icon, meaning we can use it to space out the rating icons. Let me demonstrate. When I start to change the setting, the icons get more space between them, creating a more elongated look. It's rather nice, but my design involves the original icon margin, so I'll clear this. After that, there's text margin bottom. It's for adjusting the space under the text of the review. You can see how it changes when I start to drag the slider. With this option, we can create more space between the text and the image below it. For my design, I'll put 12 pixels here. The next option is also for adjusting the text margin, but this time it's top side, and it works the same as its counterpart. You can drag the slider or input a value to adjust this space here. I'm going to set 15 pixels for this. The option that follows this is the rating margin bottom. It's used to change the amount of space under the rating icons. Here, please note you can't use this to reduce the space set with the text margin top. Each margin works on a separate part of the widget content, even though when I start to increase, it may all look the same to the naked eye. I'll clear this. And the last spacing option is rating margin top. It's for adjusting this space above the rating icons. It works like all the others. You can use the slider for adjustment or the input field. It's up to you, but I'll clear this as the padding I set gave me enough space here. I don't need more. Alright, the next section we have is text style. It will help us set the look of the review text. The first option here is text length. With it, we can limit the amount of review text shown to a specific number of characters. So if I thought that this was too long, I could set something like 50 characters and get this much shorter review. I'll clear this. But this option can be very useful if you have reviews of very different lengths. You can use it to kind of even them out. After that, we have the text color. It works just the same as any other option for changing the color. For my design, I have a specific shade of dark gray in mind, so I'll type in the hex code to get it. Next, there's text typography. We already covered what options you get under typography, so there's no need to go over them again. I'll simply change what I need for my design and we'll move on. That involves changing the size to 19 pixels, then switching the style from normal to italic. And last but not least, I'll set the line height to 28 pixels. That's it. That also rounds out the text style options. So we can move on to the section for time style. We have two options here, and they allow us to style this, the text dating the review, telling us how long ago it was posted. So we can change its color. Again, we have the standard color picker, so you can pick between using the slider or the hex code. I'm happy with the default setting, so I'll clear this. And the other thing we can do is adjust the typography settings. I'll open them so you can see we have all the same options we've seen before, but I don't plan to make any changes here. And that's it. My review display is done, and I can hit update to save my work. So this is the section I created to showcase the Business Reviews Yelp widget, and we can see the style and design I used for the reviews. If you recall the page we started from, this one, you'll find the design I used here. But there are also several other examples you can see. They are here to show you all the different ways you can use and style this widget. Besides the design that I used, there are many others. And that doesn't even touch on what you can create in terms of custom design solutions. Whatever you decide to create should be very easy to implement now that you know the options you get with this widget and how to use them. Ultimately, we hope you found this tutorial on the Business Reviews Yelp widget from the Key Addons for Elementor Premium plugin helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please drop us a line in the comments below. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel and be the first to learn about any new tutorials and theme guides that we post. Thank you for watching.